All right, welcome everyone to the last presentation of this spring's NNP Symposium. As I'm sure everyone is well aware by now, we are fully sponsored by UPNIS, the Eric P. Newman Numismatic Education Society, as the symposium has been since its birth in 2020. This is the second year that we've worked with Central States to come have a hybrid event in the spring, so we're excited to be back. And this is our last presentation, so thank you all for hanging around. So we're joined by Russ Bega and Mike Nottelmann of the Coin Show podcast. They have been presenters with us since the beginning, and we're excited to have them back yet again. Mike has been with the show since its birth in 2010, and Russ recently joined as an occasional host. So we'll be hearing some tales from over the counter about their time working in a coin shop. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and I'll be back at the end for the Q&A.
So, thank you very much. Welcome to our presentation of Coin Show Podcast presents Tales from Over the Counter.
Small warning here. I'm going to attempt to stay in frame the entire time. What you'd like to call a walker. So might get a little hairy, but we're gonna make it work. Tales from the shop. So if you're just joining us and you don't know a whole lot about us, I'm Russ Bega. Again,
I'm Mike Nottelmann.
So as we were so kindly introduced, Mike has been doing the Coin Show podcast for a very hot minute, going on 14 years now. Yeah. I started joining forces with him a couple years ago, and we started joining forces because we both work at the same coin shop.
Yes.
So
we work for Harlan J. Berk in Chicago at 31 North Clark in the Loop, and it's a pretty different shop. It's definitely high end. And so we see some stuff in this shop that I don't think people will normally see. Some of it is location, some of it is just reputation. Harlan Berk made his reputation being one of the foremost experts in the world on ancient coins. And so we work in the US shop on the main floor. We are the floor show, we are the entertainment. And we've had some pretty interesting stuff happen over the years. And we just wanted to share a couple of really cool stories with some really cool coins that we thought you guys would enjoy.
Yeah, so the big feature of this kind of is our store, because our store is very special. We're the oldest physical coin shop in the country, and with that comes a little bit of baggage and a little bit of interesting history. So basically, our shop started as Ben's in 1945. Sometime, I can't remember the exact date, in the 60s, Rare Koa took it over. And then when they moved out to Joliet, Harlan decided that he was going to take over the lease from Eddie Milas. And in 1989, we moved into our current location. So we've been there, to be very honest, longer than I've been alive by a couple years.
And interestingly enough, the deal for the shop was consummated over a handshake.
And a glass of wine.
And a glass of wine in Italy. There was not a lawyer in sight. This is what happens when adults get together. They can actually get things done.
So our store, I want you guys to keep in the back of your mind, because again, it's a very special place. If you've ever been in downtown Chicago, people know it just by the windows. So that's really kind of the star of the show. It's not me, it's not Mike, it's not even all the coins. It's a certain location in Chicago.
What happens at that location.
So I'm going to start this first one off because I'm the guy that wrote the article about it. So I will actually let you start this one off because you had the initial encounter.
Okay. So this story is one of the more interesting ones I've ever had. A lady walked in off the street and she had a single coin with her. It was in a 2x2. And when I saw it, I really wasn't sure as far as what to make of it. It is a 1797 $10 gold. To be honest with you, my experience with them at this point was none. And so it was a matter of trying to figure it out, trying to look at it, see if we could figure out if it was real, and then try and grade it, try and make an offer to buy it, which we were successful in doing.
So we were successful in doing it. And, you know, Mike and I are story guys, and we always want to know, how in the world do you have this thing? So I asked the question, you know, would you mind sharing where it came from? And she's very reluctant. And she says, well,
she was very reluctant. Surprising.
Yes, very surprisingly reluctant. And she says, maybe I will send you an email with the story. And so we kind of sat on it for a little bit. And then one day Mike gets an email, and that kind of really is what took this coin from just an outstanding, beautiful coin. It graded AU 55 plus, by the way, CAC. It takes that and it makes it so much more special. this lady actually sold this coin to fund her daughter's PhD. More interestingly, this coin has been in her family probably since right after it was minted. Essentially, the story is it was given to the son of her ancestor. He kept running away to sea. He wanted to be a sailor. He's from a wealthy, New England family, and all he wanted to do was be a sailor. Finally, his father stops him and he says, look, you are from a certain stock. I will apprentice you to a ship captain. You will learn the business. You are not an ordinary sailor. You are a businessman. You are a person of means. He hands him three $10 gold pieces and he says, in your travels, you are to buy your three sisters, something. I don't care what it is, but you're going to Europe, you're going to buy them something. He came back with all three $10 gold pieces, and this piece was passed to the first son along with his sword. So now I have this amazing story. And then it turns out it's even better because she herself is a writer. And she basically gives me this blurb, and I won't read it verbatim, but you can check it out. It's in a
Numismatist.
Yes, it is an edition to Numismatist from a couple years ago. But basically, she says, she's feeling a lot of feelings with this. She just gave away, her family's prized heirloom. And so when she tells us this story, she has this wonderful, wonderful blurb. And basically, she says, sometimes the only thing a parent can do is give their child the last little bit of gold they have or whatever they have and send them on their way and hope that they make something of themselves, hope that their parenting was strong enough. And that Mike and I, we have kids. We have kids and we lost it because it made that such an interesting story. This coin it's actually in the number 3 CAC holder. It's since changed hands once for double what it sold for originally. So it's a very, very special coin and a very cool coin.
So we bought the coin and we decided that we needed to have it graded. And so we sent it off to PCGS to have it graded. The coin gets to PCGS, and about 2 days later, we get a phone call from Steve Feltner, who is the head of education for PCGS, wanting to know where we got this coin and how we came about it. So we told him the story. He was really impressed. The coin comes back to us. We're showing it to everybody because we love this coin. And then we send it to John Albanese at CAC to have it stickered. Again, we get a phone call from John Albanese saying, where did you get this coin? And the funny part about it is, this coin had not seen a grading service ever. It had not really seen the light of day because it was a family heirloom. And so one of the coolest stories, one of the greatest coins I've probably ever bought.
Yes, it was absolutely gorgeous. So that is probably that's definitely one of our highlights, but the real meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about is the suitcase. So again, Mike, I consider Mike my like front end manager. He runs the counter, so he deals with most people as they come in. So I'm going to toss this one over to you again.
Okay,
to start.
So once again, we had a lady come in, and this lady, she had talked to me over email for a couple of weeks. She said, "I have a bunch of coins. My father had a collection. It belonged to his father, and it belonged to his father, and I'm scared to have it anymore. I really kind of want to sell it." And after talking to her for a couple of weeks, she finally came in with the collection. Apparently, she liked us because, we took her into the back gallery. She had a suitcase, and it was literally packed about as full as you could possibly get with coins, foreign coins, US coins.
Even a couple of ancients.
A couple of ancients. There's gold, there's silver, there's all this stuff. And so we take her in the back because it's easier that way. We don't have customers milling around over the top of it. And we start taking the steel apart. And we notice all the coins are in these envelopes.
These are 2x2 envelopes. And if you can't see those real well, they're a little faded out. But these 2x2 envelopes are from some very prominent guys. Guys
you might have heard of.
You might have heard of, like B. Max Mell or Chapman.
Or Henry Chapman.
Basically, this collection was another one that we went through, and this is probably the freshest collection anybody had seen in a very long time. And
because these had been under a bed for 50 years.
Yes, that's actually the hook. It's quite literally, they were under a bed in Louisiana for close to, I think it was 20 years, if I remember right. And then they came up here and they were in a hall closet for 15 years. This woman had no idea.
She had no clue what she had.
And,
so the interesting part is we're in the back. And we're going through this collection. She's sitting there. She's being really great about it. We're like, oh, yeah, this is cool. And we're just kind of going through stuff. And all of a sudden she looks at us, she goes, guys, I think you got this. I'm bored.
Let me know
Do
when
you
you're
mind?
done.
Let me know when you're done. And she left.
She walked out.
And she walked out and just left us with the suitcase.
So some of the things we found in there. So this is just a sample of the envelopes. So there's a lovely high relief saint. It was marked on, if you see, you can't really see the
Yeah,
envelope.
you can't see
right
the
there.
envelope.
It just says St. Gaudens and it says $20 gold piece and it said 1907. I was the one that pulled it out. I didn't put it together. I was just like, "Ooh, it's a saint." And then I went, "Oh my goodness, it's a high relief saint."
It's the 1907.
Yeah.
So, yes.
And what's terribly interesting is he paid $25 for this coin. He marked his coins on his envelopes of what he paid for them and when he bought them. We found this coin, this lot in actually through NNP. We
Yes.
went in and we used the NNP resource because it's amazing. And we actually found most of the sales these coins came out of. We found their
Because
catalog.
we had the lot numbers.
Because we had those numbers.
Everything we needed.
So, we got to do all of these and it was amazing. And then my personal favorite is a coin that I actually
Then you ended up buying.
own. Yes.
You could not live without it.
I'm a Liberty seated collector. There's a few of us that are absolutely crazy and will keep doing this and keep buying seated stuff. So I saw this coin and I fell in love. This is an 1861 O Liberty seated $50. It's WB04, which means it's a Louisiana issue. But what's so interesting about this is, again, it's kind of hard to see the envelope, but the envelope says, he bought it in February of 1916 and he paid an entire dollar for this coin. What I love about this coin particularly is it's so toned over and that's very, very reminiscent. You get this color from these 2x2 envelopes. They're full of sulfur. It's a very, what I like to call a crusty original coin. And so when I pulled this thing out, I got this just immense feeling of, I'm probably the actual second owner of this coin. It hasn't seen the light of day probably since the 1930s. No one's probably taken out an envelope. All of these envelopes were haphazardly just everywhere in this.
Tossed in there.
She truly had no idea
She
what was
had
there.
not a clue. And this coin by itself has an amazing story. Because in 1861 in the New Orleans Mint, you have, little ruckus going on called the Civil War.
Little fracas.
And so, it's like in January, Louisiana leaves the Union.
But they don't join the Confederacy.
They don't join the Confederacy until June 1st. So they're making gold coins under the auspices of the United States for 2 weeks, then under the auspices of the state of Louisiana for several months, and then under the auspices of the Confederacy. And they're all made with the same dies. So you have to track the cracks and you look at the progressions and that tells you who made the coins.
Yeah. And so this one happens to be a Louisiana issue. It's just one that I personally fell in love with. So of course I had to buy it. So now I'm basically the second owner of this coin, which is incredible to think about because it is it's a monster just in general. So just super amazing. But the real star of the suitcase is this. This is an 1895 proof set.
Both sides.
Both sides. Yes. This is an 1895 proof set.
And these coins were scattered throughout the suitcase.
The best part of this story is Mike and I having to go. There was also some junk silver in there.
Yes. There's a bag of junk quarters.
And everything but I believe the $1.50.
No, it was the dollar and the penny.
The dollar and the penny.
Dollar and the
Everything
penny.
else was mixed in with the
in
junk
that
silver.
junk silver bag. The nickel, the dime, the quarter, and the half.
And I would like to point out not one coin graded under a 66. They're all sixes
So they
and
didn't.
sevens.
She didn't bang these around. She put them in there, but that was it. That was where they stayed. And so this particular proof set, the 1895 proof set, it's more common as just coins rather than as a set. The Morgan dollar, they only made 800 of. So this is super, super rare coin and really highly desirable. So, when we first noticed that it was an $1895, we're like, wait a minute, there's an 1895 Indian head set over here that's proof.
And we looked at each other and we went, oh my.
Where's the rest?
This might be a whole set. And it was a match set. If you look at these coins really carefully, you'll see that the color matches everything. We really truly believe this is the annoying part because these are some of the only coins that didn't have an envelope. So we don't know where they came from.
Except for the Morgan.
except for the Morgan.
Morgan had an envelope.
Yep, Morgan had an envelope. And so we're pretty sure this was actually a set that he bought from B-Max Mel at some point. So it's one of the very few, what we feel to be truly original 1895 proof sets. Interestingly enough, in there was also an 1893 proof set.
Yes.
And my personal favorite, there was a 1906 US Philippines proof set in there, which is also a very rare bird. So this guy had amazing taste. And the gist of the story, the conclusion of this particular story is this lady was going through some stuff. She basically, one of the reasons her motivation for selling the collection was she was trying to save her house. And when we tell you she had no idea what was in there, she had no idea. So Mike picks up the phone and he gets to break the good news to her.
I did get to. So real quick aside, the dollar. So we sent the dollar off to have it graded, of course. We sent them all to have it graded. And it goes to PCGS. And guess what happens? We get a phone call from Stephen Feldman.
Where did
He wants to know where the coin came. This is the next week after we bought the 10. So it was just weird. And so this coin, the dollar, is the 7th finest known.
67 plus.
MS 67 plus. It is a monster coin.
Yeah, it is absolutely gorgeous.
So now I'm sorry. Now
yes,
back
please.
to
now
so,
tell this part.
So one of the greatest parts of my job is when I get to do phone calls like this. So I call the lady and I'm like, okay, so we have it figured out and we're ready to make an offer. But before I make an offer, and I like to do this when the number's really big, before I do that, do you have any idea what was here? And she says, no, I really don't have a clue. I just blindly trusted you guys. And
I believe her exact quote was maybe a few $1,000.
Yeah. And I told her that I was writing her a check for 6 figures. And she literally just got teared. I mean, it was like she saved her house. And it was something that we were really proud to take part in.
Yeah.
And it was a great story. And it worked out for everybody because the person that owns these coins now is just absolutely thrilled
with them.
Yes.
Because where do you find a better provenance? We're in the US. In the US market, provenance is not such a thing. We work for a company where provenance is everything because in ancients, it's the law.
Right.
And
if they don't have the provenance, you can't own them.
Exactly. But with US stuff, it's not so much. There's a few. There's guys like, Eric P. Newman gets his own slabs, Stax Bowers, those guys, they get them. But these guys don't, and that's what's more interesting. So I have a rule. Whenever we buy a collection, I generally buy a piece of it, even if it's just a small token piece. And I think it's one, because I'm just a sentimental guy, but also because, when Mike and I say we like stories, this is the kind of stuff we like because I want to own a piece of that. I want that to come back.
I want to be part of that story.
Yeah, you want to be part of it. You want to attach your name to it. So Mike and I, we're working on provenance for US coins. Get behind it. This one is terribly, terribly interesting.
This one is great.
This is probably one of my favorites. Guy walks in the shop and he goes, I got your name from the Liberty Seated Collectors Club. I have this thing and I don't know what it is. So he pulls it out and I look at it and it's a 1864 Seated Liberty $50, which is a fairly scarce coin already, well under 1 million made. It's a Civil War date, so it's very popular. And he hands me this thing and I start reading it. And if you can see it, you'll see on the front, W.M. Bogle, Boston Encampment. And then you'll see taken from the ruins of Masonic Temple, April 7th, 1864. So in April of 1864, the Grand Masonic Temple in Boston, Mass. Burns to the ground. The fire is so intense that it melts
the artifacts.
It melts the artifacts, the ceremonial vestments of masonry. It melts them. They're made out of silver. Well, somebody came up with a great idea. We're going to take these ceremonial instruments and we're going to take them to the Philadelphia Mint. How they convinced them to do this, I don't know, because specie were suspended.
Were suspended.
Yeah.
Civil
You
War.
weren't able to take your silver to get it coined at the Philadelphia Mint at this time. They had stopped that because of the Civil Wars. But somebody talked them into striking coins from that melted and re-refined silver. And as part of basically a fundraising effort, they engraved them, and for an extra fee, you could have your name put on it. There's 7 of these, 7 or 8 of them known currently. This kind of becomes the 9th. But what's interesting is the guy, William Bogle, is the most prominent Mason we've seen on any of these. He was the mayor of, of one of the outlying cities. He was, a 33rd degree Mason. He was a real leader in the lodge, and he's really the most famous one we know about. But what's more interesting about, the coin itself is massively interesting. What I find to be more interesting is my client and how he acquired said coin. My client is about my age, he's a little bit older, so he's in his mid-30s. And he goes, I was 17 working at McDonald's, and somebody spent this as a quarter. And I looked at it and I went, well, that's weird. And so I took it and I put 2 quarters in the till.
Hell of a deal.
And he goes, I wrapped it in a napkin, I put it on my, on my shelf, and I left it alone. And then I was moving. I just finished the bar, I just passed the bar, I'm getting married soon. And I went, oh, I wonder if this is worth anything. And that's when he comes to us. And so this is now currently actually being written up by Stacks. It'll be in the A&A sale. It's just amazing. It came back cleaned, which I have some problems with. It was probably a pocket piece, whatever. I'm not going to harp on it. But this is the stuff that I love, because this was pure research to me. I had never heard of these before, ever in my wildest dreams. And I'm a very big Liberty Seated guy. I've never heard of these before. And suddenly here's a brand new mystery to drop in my lap. That's what keeps Mike and I coming back, is the random mystery. So you always get something. So this is just such a cool story and such a random story. I can't even imagine having somebody just try to spend that, so Lord only knows where it was before, but now this is really like the 9th known piece. So, sometimes we discover some really interesting stuff.
And sometimes we can't figure it out.
This is very true. Sometimes we can't.
But sometimes we just get lucky.
And this is one of those getting lucky.
So we buy a lot of commemorative dollars, and we don't generally pay a lot of money for them because they're just common. Nobody collects them. Nobody cares. So when we buy them, we take them, we throw them in a closet, in a box. And it's like every once in a while, I'll go through them for the wholesalers and I'll just start tearing them out of the package. And so we're tearing the capsules out of these packages.
Well, so the story behind that is we had bought a very large deal, and it was all essentially this collector had bought every mint product from like 1984 to like 2004-ish, 2000 bulk. So like 5 a piece. So there
were 8 sets of this coin.
Yes.
And only one of them toned.
So we're having what we like to, this process we call defenestration. This is your word for the day.
Yeah, it means to throw somebody out a window.
Yes. Defenestration means to throw somebody else out of a window, but we use it as
a 2x2 has a window. So you're taking it out of the window. That's defenestration in our.
Personally, I see it as I would rather throw myself out of the window than have to take all this stuff out of holders, but that's just my aside. His is probably more accurate. I like mine better. But so we are having a party in the shop. We're all on the front counter. It's getting near the end of the day, and the whole shop is out there, and we're just ripping boxes apart. And this is one of the last ones. I'm doing this one. And this actually came in a set of the $1 and the $10 gold. And it's very deep foam. Somehow.
And there's a little sponge.
Correct. And there's a little sponge at the bottom. Somehow the cap wasn't seated on this at all. Probably in shipping it had come apart. This is 1984, 40 years ago.
For 40 years.
Yeah. And so I'm literally about to put this cap back on this coin and toss it in the bucket. And I turn it over just out of habit because I look at every coin because I can't help myself. And there that thing is. It is probably one of the most colorful modern commemorative dollars you'll see. And
they could not have colored this better with a paintbrush.
No, you couldn't have at all. It's just absolutely amazing. And so that's one of those things. Sometimes you get lucky. And this was pure luck. There was no skill involved in this. We will very, very gladly admit that. It was just luck in being able to get the deal in the shop and buy it. And now it's actually in my pocket right now because we've had it displayed and people have been coming and oohing on it.
Everybody wants to buy it.
Everybody wants to buy it. I don't know if it's for sale yet, but we'll see.
And last but not least, we have some good friends.
Oh, no. Hang on. We're thinking.
We have some good friends at the bank. And there were some ladies that went into their parents' safe deposit box after they died, and they found a stack of $500 and $1,000 bills.
So the story kind of goes like this. Lady again, it's kind of like the setup of a bad joke. Lady walks into a coin shop and she's got a backpack. And she goes, so my sister and I inherited a safety deposit box. I tried to take it to my bank and give it to the teller. And the teller looked at me and said, please don't give this to me. And she gave me your name. And we're like, oh, okay. So we're thinking maybe we're going to see some large size bills or something. And she just whips out a wad and drops it on the counter. 55 $500 bills and 10 $1,000 bills. And
all of them just average circulated.
Just
nice notes.
but just more than you could shake a stick at. And so we're like, where did this come from? If I remember right, it was their great uncle, or it was a distant family member that had died. And she goes, yeah, my sister didn't listen to me. She deposited hers at her bank. And if you're a collector, you know that means they are now property of the federal government and they're being pulped. So
there are now 55 less $500 bills.
So that's good for you if you have $500 bills.
Yes.
But so we, of course, we have a lot of fun in the shop, if you can't tell. And so we, of course, all passed this stack of 500s around, 500s and thousands, and we were taking pictures.
There's a picture of me counting out like it's my monthly.
So we definitely always have money on our minds, but that is probably one of the most interesting currency stories we have, and just, random, but we've got a million of them. Again, we can sit up here, we can tell you about the other currency story. We had a guy walk in and he goes, yeah, I have all these. And he lays down solid uncirculated packs of $10 North African notes, including a partial pack of star notes. And I looked at him and I go, did your dad serve in the war? And he goes, yeah, why? And I go, what'd he do? He goes, he was a paymaster.
Yeah, he's a military paymaster.
Oh, fancy that. We have people walk in with hundreds of ounces of gold. We had another guy walk in. He goes, I got some currency to sell. Puts out some average currency. He goes, oh yeah, and this. And he drops a 100-ounce gold bar on the counter. Middle of Chicago, you never know.
And they just walk in with it.
Yeah.
There's no armored car delivering this stuff.
It's just a guy walking in. So when we say we have a special location,
it is a very special
we
location.
We have a special location. When you have all the banks around, when you have all the jewelry stores, when you have all of that stuff, when you're in the financial heart of the second city, stuff's going to walk in. And let me tell you, it walks in a lot.
On the regular.
So with that,
any questions?
Bueller. Yes, sir.
On the Masonic cap, make sure that stacks when they catalog, they talk to Steve Tompkins.
Already pointed them that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
On it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna take down the screen share here. We're gonna all cram into the little box that the camera can see.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so if you're online, you can ask questions with the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I expect everyone knows that by now. Otherwise, do we have any other questions in the room? I don't see any hands. Okay.
Bueller.
Okay. Then we have not had any come in online yet. We got one in the room.
Do you guys have any coins from the suitcase, slabbed or raw for sale still at Harlan J. Berk?
No, they are. Well, so there's some ancient inventory left, but all the US stuff, when I tell you that stuff was popular,
It went fast.
It was gone.
And it was gone at high price.
Yes,
It was all the BMAX mail envelopes and the Chapman envelopes. So
Or-
people really loved it, and we could not have sold it faster.
Yeah, I mean, it was just gone.
It was a lesson that, look, there's a market for stuff out there. You just have to have the right stuff.
Yeah, the provenance is incredibly interesting behind that. I
Yeah.
imagine you still have your envelope.
It's in the holder with the coin.
Yes, I very much still have it.
Yeah.
What's really interesting about that is, so, Mike and I actually kind of talked about that because recently we've seen a lot of older collections started coming up. I had bought a collection the summer previously that was, a collection that was many hundreds of thousands of dollars out of Rockford. We bought this collection. We've had a bunch of different collections coming in, and I think we're at a point where the people that had these really great collections, unfortunately, they're starting to pass. And now a lot of this stuff is coming to market. We're in this really interesting sweet spot where we're finding collections that haven't ever seen a grading
They're
service.
pre-grading service. They've been locked away for 35 or 40 years.
But I think we're at the end of that time period. And that's interesting because now we're gonna be at this time period where there's not gonna be a lot of fresh stuff left to make.
There's not much left now.
Yeah, it's hard. We really do run one of the largest shops in the country, one of the most busy, and we don't get stuff like that all the time. So it's one of those things that is drying out, and it's definitely an aged population kind of a thing. So it's sad for sure, but it's interesting to watch because a lot of times, it's people in their 50s, even in their 60s that, their parents, the greatest generation have, they've just died and they bring it in and they don't have any interest in it. So, but then again, we get a lot of young people too.
Yep.
So, it's all a
That's
cycle.
okay. We specialize in people that are interested in it.
We do.
All right. Do we have something online? Let's see if it's
Cool, we got questions.
Okay, when you get all this crazy stuff coming into your shop, how do you go about offering the customer a fair price when they have no idea what they have?
Education. If you can read all of our Google and Yelp reviews, Mike and I especially, if someone comes in and they have no idea what they have, we give them an education.
We make it our mission to let them know what they have and educate them, because we honestly feel that an educated customer is a way better customer.
So one of the things we actually do a lot is if we have like a very high value item, or even, so we have some paper that we recently took in, and we looked at the guy and we're like, look, this might be auction worthy. This might be really, really good, expensive stuff. And we went, let's do this. Let's get it graded. And when it comes back, we can either make you an offer on it, or we can see if auction is the best way.
Right.
Because then we're not arguing over what it is. We're all informed.
And everybody can participate in the profit.
Yeah. And we're very blunt with people, with most things. We do a very large bullion business. I'll tell you exactly what I pay for bullion all the time. We believe transparency is always best because we want to make these people customers for life. That's our goal. Make them customers for life. Make sure that they want to come back. They want to say, hey, you found that stuff, take it over to these guys. Take it to Mike. Mike will take care of it.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of that. And that's really what the coin business is. We're this very weird social circle kind of, where a lot of us are just discovering social media for that side. I know plenty of dealers don't even use a computer still. And it's 2024. So word of mouth is always big. So that's just our philosophy.
The art in our job is literally finding the sweet spot where the customer is happy and we can make some money. And that's what you got to try and find. It's like, I had somebody describe it to me today that, a lawyer that said, well, in a contract negotiation, if both people walk away unhappy, that's a good contract. I don't think we want to go that way.
Yes.
I think we want everybody to be happy. So it's finding that sweet spot where, you can make them happy and you can make them glad that they sold it to you and still make money on it. And it just takes a little transparency of telling them right out of the box. It's like, look, I've got to figure out a price that's going to make you happy, but I can still make money on it.
That's really it.
All right, any other questions in the room? Yeah.
How often do you have people that walk in that, they automatically know more than you, and anything less than a stupid money offer is, you try and whip them off?
We get
Awesome.
Yes, often. And a lot of that is actually something that Mike and I are very passionate about, and it's clickbait, and it's fighting clickbait. Because a lot of times people, so for example, the $2 bill story that went around of, is your $2 bill worth $2,000? There's quite literally a quote in the Chicago Sun-Times that says, Russ Bega describes him and his staff as professional dream crushers. Because truly that's what we are. We have to crush a lot of dreams, but we always try to do it in a sensitive way and try to educate people. We don't, we're not dismissive.
Oh, that's stupid.
It's not worth that, it's not worth that. Just trust me, and then walk away. It's like, okay, this is why this one was worth that. And then but the easiest and best educational tool for stuff like that is, and why we keep stuff like that around. Like, so we give out $2 bills and change at the shop. That's all. There's no ones in our shop.
Nope.
So when you grab a stack of $2 bills and you go, I'll give you all you want for $2. That's how you disarm people.
Now
because you have
suddenly
the
their
knowledge.
$2 bills are not super valuable.
Yeah, but we do get the occasional person that gets a little feisty and they want to argue about it. And more often than not, what we get is just people that are underinformed. They see something online, and it's times are tough for everybody, and they want to make a buck. And then you have to tell them, well, unfortunately, your 1976 quarter is not worth whatever the MS-69 that Heritage just sold that all the outlets got a hold of, So.
And if you're
sensitivity.
seeing all these people on Google that are telling you it's worth $10 million, try selling it to them.
Yes, sell it to those guys. But one of the best ways that we tell people is eBay, right? And the problem is they don't look at sold listings. So that we have an iPad on the counter. We will literally teach people how to
Pull it
type
up.
sold listings.
And so go here to advanced and then click on sold completed auctions. And it's stuff is worth what people will pay for it.
Yeah.
So our job is an educator, almost as much as it is coin dealer.
Yeah, almost as much as being a salesman. We need an educated public. We need more collectors.
Right.
And that's what we always try to do. Everybody that walks in the shop is a potential collector, somebody that we can place something with, or maybe somebody has something cool for us. So.
All right. Then we have another one online. Is Matt the other host of the Coin Show podcast, if anyone is unaware?
Yeah, he is making content from the show.
Is he making content at Central States?
Yes.
Finish the
Yes,
question.
I'm sorry. Yes, he's making content. Lots of it. It's all online. Look at YouTube.
It'll be everywhere.
It'll be everywhere. T the Silver Stacker was making a bunch of it too. So
Yeah,
we
check
like
those
to.
guys out.
All right, then that's the last one we have online for now. So last call if you're watching online. Otherwise, last call in the room.
I'll try this one. Since we have spicy Mike and mild Matt, is there a chance that robust Russ may some action? At least as a marinade, I think there might be some potential.
I will tell you what, look, we had Spicy Mike's hot sauce and it was very popular. And I've had many people ask me where they can get it. If you write to me, I will tell you. We tried to get Matt to do a hot sauce and he was just like, I'm not so sure about it. So there's always something new in the pipeline.
Working on a cooking
What it's
empire
gonna
now,
be,
guys.
it's gonna be something and it'll be different. That's all I can guarantee you. It will be different.
I like that.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
So every week the show is sponsored by something, sometimes
Yes.
it's like pencils.
Yes.
or,
The more mundane, the better.
So when do you decide what it's sponsored by?
I'm gonna take that question because I've seen this creative process. Matt will look at Mike and he will go, hey, what's the sponsor? And Mike will kind of do one of these things. Water. Because you're made of 80% of it. And that's the read.
And I just come up with something stupid and just say it. And that's it. And that's how it works. And that's how it happens. My entire purpose with that is to make Matt laugh so that we can kind of start things off a little bit, less rigid. And it's an homage to a couple of Chicago guys named Stephen Gary. And Stephen Gary used to do this show and they would do these skits and stuff. And it would always be sponsored by something like Scotch Tape or Staples or, before Staples was a store. And so I just decided I wanted to do that. I wanted to resurrect that. And we've had an awful lot of fun with it. I at one time also did a random generator. It was a random object generator. And just give me an object. And it's like, okay, now I've got to figure out something really fast.
All right. Okay,
Another question.
that was a statement
Oh, yes. Thank you.
saying that you have a very informative and outstanding podcast.
See, I waited for you to read it this time.
Okay.
That's the humbleness.
Yes, I'm very humble. I'm amazingly humble.
The most.
course.
Yes.
Okay, then we don't have any other questions online. Do we have any others in the room? No, okay. Then I think that's going to wrap us up. Thank you so much.
Thank
Well,
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And so this will wrap up this NNP symposium. Thank you everyone who has participated throughout the past few days. All of the recordings will be up in the next 2 to 3 weeks on the Newman Numismatic portal as well as YouTube. When those are up, they will be announced on all of our social media. Or if you would like to receive an email when they're up, you can subscribe to our mailing list. That's available on the homepage of our website or on the lovely piece of paper at the front of the room here for those of you at Central States. That's going to wrap us up. We should be back this fall with another fully virtual event, and thank you all so much.